Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and today I'm at East West Books in Seattle, Washington with Cate Montana, author of The E Word, Ego, Enlightenment, and Other Essentials.
That's it.
Welcome to Author, Cate.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, Bill.
So, Cate, I was thinking about you as I was driving over, and I was thinking about actually the interview I shot last month with a woman named Sharma Shields. She's a novelist. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about sort of the self that is at the desk and how it sometimes feels very different than the one that is bopping around the world, paying bills and getting in arguments with spouses and so on.
Right.
And what she said is, to paraphrase, is I feel like I kind of stop existing when I'm writing, which leads exactly into what this book is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I now figure I know what the channeling process is, because I would sit down, I would wake up in the morning and 4 or 5 a.m. and first thing I'd put on my bathrobe and I'd turn on the computer, and 10 minutes later I was working. And and then all of a sudden I'd look up and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's a nice experience, isn't it?
Holy moly, and it happened day after day after day.
That was for this book?
That was with this book. Well, it was with both books.
It was?
It was with both books. And I totally lost any sense of personal self
while
I'm
in that
writing.
State.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Have you ever spoken in front of large groups of people? Or any group of people, really? I like to do it, but I realized the only way to do it is I have to think of myself as transparent. If I start thinking of people looking at me and paying attention to me, it becomes very awkward. But then if I think of something kind of coming through me, then it works, so to speak.
It's so interesting because when I started on the speaking circuit with this book, with the E Word, the first time I walked out into an audience, and it was less than 100, but pushing 100. And it doesn't matter if it's 3 people or 3,000 people. It really doesn't. You're still exposed and vulnerable. Yeah. The ego self is exposed and vulnerable. Yeah. How am I going to do? I really want to do well. I want them to like me. Oh, God, please don't let me screw up like I did in high school. Well, I have all this programming. My ego, as I write about in the book, the ego is our story of self.
Right.
It's our personal sense of who we are, and it's totally based in the past.
Yes.
It's totally based in the past.
It's not
and
on this moment ever. No.
Never in this moment.
Yeah.
So all I can do is regurgitate, react based from my past, my personal story, and who I think I am, and all the things I've learned, hoped, dreamed, feared, etc. Well, in the course of my life, coming up to this point, I had 3 really traumatic onstage experiences that started when my first piano recital, holy God, it was just a disaster. That was 8 years old. Then I froze on stage in a musical in high school. Oh yeah, and I forgot the middle one. The middle one was in 8th grade when I was standing up in front of the entire school body to do a learned talk about Santo Domingo. I don't know, some little forest fire guerrilla war going on in Santo Domingo. And I froze. So that was 3 really bad experiences. So fast forward 50 years, I have stage fright. The throw up in a bucket, quaking, dry mouth. Oh God, Bill.
For this book?
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh.
So I mean, and with Unearthing Venus, I talked a bit, but I really didn't hit the stage.
Yeah.
This book has got me out there. And so the very first talk, I'm standing back, and all of a sudden it goes, oh, Cate.
What's the book about?
What's the book about? That's Cate's stuff.
Yeah.
That's Cate has stage fright. I am really clear that I am not really Cate. I'm so much more.
And what you really are does not have any stage fright.
And what I really am has no stage fright whatsoever. And I swear to God, Bill,
Did it work?
Was like that. It was like turning off a switch. And I have never had any problems since.
Wow.
Not a
Seriously?
flicker. Seriously.
That's amazing.
So that's one of the things I want to teach about.
God, if you could teach, because people's number one fear above death is speaking in public.
Exactly right.
You could make a fortune.
I could make a fortune. Thank you, Bill.
If you could teach people how to do that. Wow.
One of the things that I'm so excited about setting up workshops and teaching is this sense of self. Well, how do we change?
Right.
How do we change? Genuinely change. And the reason so many self-improvement techniques really don't work, from my perspective, is because we're trying to change the ego structure, which is a story in our heads.
Yeah.
It's not really real. It seems awful damn real, and we live from it. So yes, of course, it's real in that respect. It runs our lives. It dictates who we think we are, how we act, the decisions
It certainly
we make.
can.
It certainly
And it
can.
probably does for almost everybody.
If you're in the ego bubble and you don't know that you're the ego, and we have a classic example of a fearless leader on stage right now with Donald Trump.
We do.
He has no idea that he is totally wrapped up in his ego and has no other perspective but self.
It's really perfect that this book is coming out now, because he really is, you know, and to have some compassion for the man.
Absolutely.
He who hasn't been caught up in their ego at some point.
Who hasn't?
My wife expresses it well when she talks about the ego, and I think it makes sense to me, which is it's like a focusing tool. It's something that allows you to be here. Because I have to think you're there and I'm here, or else we can't do this. Now you did What the Bleep. Is it What the Bleep? Was that the name of the?
What the bleep do we know?
Which talks about how really, in truth, if you're not really there and I'm not, this chair isn't really even here, and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely, there's really
but
no
it can't function like that.
No, you can't function like that. Actually, from the quantum perspective and from the mystical perspective, there are no hard line boundaries.
Right.
There are no barriers. There is no personal self. And when we look at the quantum levels of existence, that's exactly what it is. There's no differentiation.
But you can't use, in a day-to-day world, you're going to run into walls, and so you can't,
yes, absolutely.
you don't have the power to, I don't have the power to go through it.
Right.
Though theoretically I could.
Theoretically, right. And that's called, you know, and a lot of Eastern people or people who get involved in wanting to develop personal powers, siddhis, as they're referred to in the East, do that. You know, there's entities who can walk around and pour ash from their hands, like what good that is, but it is a talisman of a consciousness power over non-material realm, a recognition of it, and then an action through that.
I love the story about you and stage fright, because I don't know who the teacher was who said it. Maybe it was Louise Hay. I don't know who it's attributed to. But someone said, if spirituality isn't practical, it's not spirituality.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? And when we think of practical, we think of making money, keeping a roof over the head, and so on. But and the book is interesting because it talks about sort of the dissolution of your sense. Well, it's very hard to put into language. You had to put it into a book, but really there is no I.
Right.
But of course, you go about the world and you do say I, and you go here and you pick up groceries and so on, but your suffering is the identification with what you call the I. And if you can just let that go, the story go, you can have those experiences like like you did with the stage and many other things as well.
Right. Or a fear of developing a business or
relationships,
or
anything,
whatever
really.
it is, we are inextricably bound in our story.
Yeah.
And I was going to say earlier, and I kind of got a little bit off track, and this is what fascinates me, and I work this every day when I hit a wall with, you know, like economic concerns or this or that, or can I afford to pay my publicist, or however this works. It's like I have to keep taking off the Cate hat, take a deep breath, and go, oh God, okay, oh, I am. End of story.
Right.
Pure consciousness, pure potential, pure awareness, all energy, on fire, can do anything or nothing.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of like, oh, okay, I'll take that hat off and I'll put this hat. This is what I'm going to determine myself to be. So it takes us into this really amazing realm of creation.
That's right.
That is the true creative process. And I swear, all the years of using the butterfly and the chrysalis and the silkworm as an example of transformation, I swear to God, Bill, yesterday morning I was in meditation, and all of a sudden what I'm doing, going back into that no frame, no ego, no Cate place, even for a moment, going, that's not really me, stepping out of the story and then putting into a new story into effect. That's exactly the chrysalis.
Yeah.
We turn ourselves to mush, whether it's for a moment or 2 moments.
You know what I think of? Actually, I just wrote about this, which is that I like to write first thing in the morning too. And the reason is, and I meditate, then I write, so that's my procedure. But the reason is, and I tell my students this, which is I want my mind to be as close to that page that I'm about to fill as possible. The blank page is a great gift because anything, pure potentiality, you could say.
Pure potentiality.
But my mind needs to be as close, it needs not to be running stories. It needs to be empty.
Right.
And so I can really say, which way do I want to go without the momentum of some thought or worry or concern or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most creative place, that still nothing place. Because then you can go any direction.
Exactly.
As opposed to just where you're already headed, right?
And I'm always fascinated. Every book I've written, I literally, when I start on a chapter, I think I know, because usually I usually am a good little girl and I do my vague outline and sometimes a very detailed outline. But then the story takes you where it needs to go.
Yeah.
The associations in your brain click. You go, oh my God, I can't believe I did. Yeah, I want to go here. And it just takes itself. It takes me, and I'm just the facilitator.
And I want to stress to the people watching this that Cate writes nonfiction, and I also write nonfiction now. I write about my own life, and yet what you're describing is often what you hear fiction writers talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know what my characters are going to do. I don't know,
Right.
but it is absolutely the same. Even if you're writing memoir,
It
you
is.
think you're going to write about your dad, but you write about your first boyfriend,
Right.
or you write about taking a swim when you were 10. You really let the imagination work in the same way without too much expectation.
Right. And
Right.
it very much is the story writes itself. That is not a joke.
But people hate that sometimes. Oh, what do you mean? How can you're the one there? How can it write itself? But that's
Right.
what it feels like.
That's the Zen place. That's the doinglessness
Yes.
place. The effortless effort.
Yes. Focus, but not effort. The effortlessness for me is how I know I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
I'm efforting, I know, oh, I'm probably trying to force something.
Yeah.
You know.
That's when I know, when I look up and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm like, where did that time go?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
You know, you told me a great story. One of the reasons I just wanted to talk to you anyway, but you told me a great story about how this book got published. And it came to you in a flash, the whole idea behind it. But in the publishing world as it is now, nonfiction books such as this, normally the writer has what they call a platform. Traditionally, that's what they want.
Yes.
And I certainly hear that a lot. But you didn't have one.
Very small.
Very little. Normally you would have already been teaching it around at least in the region and so on. But that didn't happen. But what you did find were people who were interested in the idea.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Well, as I say, I didn't say, but I told you earlier.
Yeah.
I had no choice in writing the book. In December of 2014, basically Spirit, what I call I am, that which I truly am underneath the Cate Montana show and hat, literally just like picked me up by the scruff of my neck and shook me and plopped me down in front of the computer and said, by God, you will finally write what you know about the ego and enlightenment. Enough. Because I dodged this book for almost 8 years.
Before you, let me quickly, you describe a moment where you first have that, it's during meditation, I think, and I think your partner at the time, she's gone, and so you're all alone, and you have this, and that's when you have this sort of revelation of where you finally get it, kind of.
Right.
When was that?
The very first time I got it, which means that I went away, and when I came back, I realized, oh, what a joke! I can't be enlightened because enlightenment is the absence of me.
Right.
That was in '97.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Yeah, I had just been really. I'm a lean-in kind of girl, and I had been going for the Enlightenment prize, the brass ring, absolutely hammer and tongs. If it's good to meditate for 2 hours, I'm going to meditate for 20 hours.
Oh my God.
And so I had this really rigorous regime for years and years and years. And finally, one morning, 4 a.m., I walk down, I look at my meditation pillow, and I say a really foul word, and I just flop down, and I just gave up. It was just, I didn't do any focus. I barely closed my eyes. I was just like, oh, screw it. I can't do this anymore. And it was just like,
oh God, that is such a that story. I hear that story so many times about so many different things.
Yep.
When you finally stop trying.
When you finally stop trying. Well, and then when I came back, it was just like, oh my God. And then it was the big joke, and it really pissed my ego off. It's like, well, I can't, oh my God,
No,
I want to be
it's
enlightened.
more
I wanted to stand up. I wanted to dress in white and stand on a stage and teach people. And now I realize I can't. Now I know it's not me. Now I understand that enlightenment is basically death, It's like, okay, what do I do with this? And aside from the fact that I was laughing my ass off. And then there was this big conundrum, and then I spent another, Jiminy Christmas, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Holy moly. 18 years from that point until I sat down to start writing about this.
And you finally wrote it. And so you kind of had to write it, and you did, but then there's a question of what to do with it.
Right.
And but again, and I can't stress this enough, and I would love for you to tell this story, because there is a story in the publishing world that I hear a ton, which is you cannot publish it unless you have all these certain ducks in a row. I've never believed that to be the case.
Right.
I certainly think that happens, but and your was the most recent story that countered that.
Right.
And so what happened?
Well, basically I started on the book, and about a month and a half in January of 2015, I realized that I needed a different agent. I put the word out, and very shortly thereafter, I ran across Lisa Hagen. I love her to pieces. She said, "Send me what you got." I sent her the first 3 chapters. She just blew her mind. And
she loved, but you didn't have a platform.
I had no platform.
But she loved the book.
She loved the book.
But you know, I think that's important. I was thinking about this, which is, I want editors and agents who love my book. I understand they want them, because they're going to have better ideas and more interesting ideas than someone who simply wants to sell it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, there's nothing wrong with selling it. Sell it.
No,
by all
means,
but love the book and be interested creatively in the book.
That's what real support is.
Yeah.
To me, that's the heart. That's the heart.
And it can't happen unless they actually are interested in the book, not just the sales it'll have.
Yep. So fundamentally, within a couple of days, she said, get me a book proposal, how soon? I said, well, I can do it in 2 weeks. She said, fine. I know who I want to send it to. She wanted to send it to Zena Musica at the New Enliven imprint at Simon & Schuster. And I got it to her on a Saturday afternoon in a Word doc, and she emailed it to Zena the next morning, and within 2 hours, Zena called her back and said, I want it. Wow.
See, but when things line up, that's how fast I think it can happen. Just like writing can happen that fast.
Exactly. When you're on, when you're hot, you're hot. When you know, when you've let go the story that you think you need to tell and something else shows up, man, run with it. Trust it. As I say, I didn't want to write this book, but I was pressured from inside. I would have exploded. God knows, I probably would have died if I hadn't written this book.
That's great.
And it just, one thing has led to another. So I'm fascinated to see what the trajectory of this book is overall.
Yeah, well, now the conversation begins. One of the, I talked to this publicist, a guy named Dan Blank. He's a really nice, he's kind of a publicist, but he framed it that way. And I think it's the absolute right language, which is it's a conversation. Now you get to have a conversation with the world about this. What do you want to talk about? Because your book begins a because your book, you don't finish the book, the reader finishes it. You start it, they finish it in their because they're going to do what they do with it.
It's never over.
No, and then they're going to talk to you about it and tell you what you got wrong and what you should know, what they loved or whatever. You know how that goes.
Sure.
But now you get to talk about the subject that you're so impassioned about anyway.
I'm so passionate about this because I truly see that how can a society, individually or culturally, work well and be happy if we don't fundamentally know who we are? How is that possible? It is impossible, and our current culture and our stress levels and our medical problems and everything that goes with our current society is this flashing neon warning sign going, God, come on, we're down the wrong path. Something very fundamental is up, and how much more fundamental it is does it get than we don't know who we really are, have no clue what the ego structure is, how to manage it, let alone that it's even a tool to manage in the first place.
But you know what I love about this time we're in now is it's starting to, the awareness, a bigger awareness is creeping in.
Yes.
Even it's creeping in into the fact, what ego is and what, the fact that you made a movie called What the Bleep and that it was released, but you were part of the making of that film, that had the distribution that it did, that it got so much slowly, but even the new age.
Actually, quite rapidly.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's pretty, I think it's a great time to see. And I think that who knows what our current president will somehow maybe inspire.
He has already inspired a shocking level of engagement.
He has unbelievable.
Kicked our ass from 6 ways to Sunday and woken this country up, and we seriously needed to be waked up.
So it's great. It's not, Sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you
need.
That's right. Well, some people wanted them, but I think that, obviously, but I think that the changes are going to come there, not the way you think, but the way.
Absolutely. They'll come the way they come, and to kind of like Jodie Foster in Contact. I'm okay to go. It's just like, just trust life and just. And which is so easy to say, trust life. That's how I ended my first book, Unearthing Venus. Oh, trust life. And then it took me another several years to get lessons that actually brought me up to speed to be equal to my own book and my own
That's okay
message.
though. I wrote myself to groundedness. I would write every day these daily columns, and I couldn't live what I wrote, but I could go there for the hour that it took me to write them, and I could inhabit it. And then I leave, and I couldn't live the way I wrote.
Oh, I'm
but
so
then
glad
I'd
to
come
hear
back,
this.
and I do it again, and I'd be that guy who could say these things.
Right.
And I could, but then I couldn't. Then I'd come back. It was like my dojo. I'd come back and back and back, and gradually I began to live the way I wrote. Slowly.
Thank you for telling me this.
Slowly though, Kate. And I'm still doing it. But I gave myself permission to not be as awesome as I felt when as clear.
Yeah.
So kind.
Clear, yeah.
I was so kind when I wrote, but I wasn't always that kind. You know what I mean?
I do know.
So
I do.
I gave myself permission to be fallen when I was away from the desk.
Thank you for giving me permission, Bill.
You're welcome.
I listened to a podcast I recorded the other day, and I winced at one point, and I don't even remember what it was I said, but I made this blanket statement about how life is for me now. And I was going through this really horrific emotional storm, and I was like,
But you know what? You know what you're headed for.
Yeah,
and
I do.
You have a goal that you didn't have 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I have a goal that I didn't have 3 years ago.
Right. That's the point.
Absolutely. And I'm thrilled because the proof is in the pudding. And I can tell my whole life is a rendering, and it is changing. And I mean, just like that instantaneous, I no longer suffer from stage fright. That's no small guacamole.
No.
And so I'm setting things aside. Like, I literally woke up and I went, I'm done drinking alcohol. I've been drinking booze since I was 16. And not just an occasional glass of white wine either.
I understand.
And I was a good solid, vodka, scotch, tequila writer.
Right.
I was a drinker. And I literally woke up and went, this no longer serves me. I quit. And I quit.
It can be that easy.
It can be that easy when you're ready for change.
Right.
God, when you're ready for change. And I think that's one of the things that's so exciting about our current situation in our political house and everything that we're up against right now is like, oh my God, people are getting to the place where it's like, wow, change or die. Okay, I get it. Yeah, it really is that kind of black and white place where it's time to man up and woman up and
person up
and go, wow, well, what's really of value? And how do we support that? And how do we support one another?
It was a fascinating conversation, as I knew it would be. But I got one more question for you. And what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to finish the sentence. If writing has taught me anything, it's taught me what?
Wow. Perseverance?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Perseverance.
You're a hard worker, though.
I'm a bloody hard worker.
But
if you told me 30 years ago when I first started cranking out journalism stories for a small local newspaper, that it would take me, from 87 to now, to have a book out. Well, of course, when you're in your 30s, everything has to happen tomorrow anyway, or you're a failure.
Yep.
So yeah, perseverance. Oh yeah, and first drafts are always crap. You think they're great. I have not finished one manuscript yet for one book, and I've done 5 now, that I just didn't think, that's it. It's perfect.
Did it in one.
Poof! And then I did it in one.
Even for this one?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Oh my God.
So for the next one, are you going to make that mistake? Oh, yeah, for that you're going to learn.
I know better now.